Your quiz is going to have like 4 different kinds of questions. The first question is going to give you a parabola. It's going to give you a quadratic, and it's going to ask you for all of these things. I'm going to write it out so you know exactly what I'm looking for. But let's talk about each one of these things. First thing I think you should do is draw yourself a little picture. What does this parabola look like? Is it positive or negative? It's positive. So draw yourself that little tiny picture, and this tells you a lot of information. It's a positive parabola. So let's go down the list. Do you know what the vertex is right now? No. But you do know if it has a maximum or a minimum value, which is what? There is a minimum. We don't know what it is, but it's at y equals, and it's the y part of the vertex. So we need to find our vertex. Okay, we'll do that in a second. Can I look at the equation and say what the x-intercept is? No. But can I look at the equation and tell you what the y-intercept is? Yes. What is it? It's at 0, -3. We write our intercepts as ordered pairs. Can I look at this equation and tell you what the axis of symmetry is? No, but I do know it's at x equals whatever the x part of the vertex is. So again, that vertex is really important to find. And then I know that the domain of every single quadratic that we do is -infinity to +infinity. And I can kind of determine the range, because our range, remember, is either -infinity to the y part of the vertex or y part of the vertex to infinity. So which one is it? Y part of the vertex, so to infinity. That's the y part of the vertex because it's positive. We read range from bottom to top, so that's why. Just put it up there. Thanks, babe. So how do I find the vertex? What's that teeny tiny little formula, Kira? X equals -b over 2a. Where do I get the b and the a from? From the equation. Good. So I know that a is 2, b is 4, and c is -3, right? So I'm going to say -4 over 2 times 2. Well, I have -4 over +4. So the x part of my vertex is what? X equals -1. So I know the x part of my vertex is -1. I know that the axis of symmetry is that x equals -1. So now that I have the x part of the vertex, how do I find the y? I'm going to plug -1 into my function. So I have y equals 2 times -1 squared plus 4 times -1 minus 3. So we square first. What's -1 squared? 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times -1 is -4 minus 3. We add and subtract left to right. What's 2 minus 4? -2 minus 3 is -5. So the y part of my vertex is at -5. Hold on one sec. So I know I have a minimum or a maximum. You guys told me it was a minimum, right? At y equals -5. My range is from -5 to infinity. All right, so then the last thing we have to do is find the x-intercepts. Guys, how do you find the x-intercepts? You're going to factor, okay? Write that down so you remember. You're going to factor. Any kind of factoring that we have done is fair game. So I take this. I have 2x squared plus 4x minus 3. 2x squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. How do you factor? Multiply a times c, yes? 2 times -3, since there was no GCF. Are there factors of -6 that when I multiply I get -6, but when I add I get +4? It's not going to work. So what do we use when something doesn't factor pretty? The quadratic. So a is 2, b is 4, c is -3. My quadratic is -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So when we fill everything in, we have -b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 4. So 4 squared minus 4 times a is 2 times c, which is negative 3, divided by 2 times 2. Questions on where I got those numbers from? Okay, good. Now we just simplify, guys. Start from the beginning. I have my negative 4 plus or minus. What is 4 squared? 16. And then what's negative 4 times 2? Negative 8 times negative 3. Positive 24 divided by 4. How do I know at this point right now that I do have x-intercepts? Because underneath the square root, good guys, is positive. If I had a negative right there, you could say, oh, no x-intercepts, because it's going to be an imaginary. But I do have x-intercepts. Are they going to be real pretty? No. But that's okay, because I'm not asking you to graph. So let's simplify. I have negative 4 plus or minus. What's 16 plus 24? 40 over 4. We know how to simplify this. What does 40 break up into? 4 and 10, right? So that would be negative 4 plus or minus 2 root 10 over 4. Can I simplify a little more? Yes. Can I just cross off the 4s? No, because remember, those are two separate terms. So this simplifies to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 10 over 2. Now this is an intercept. So this is the x value of your intercept. What is the y part of your x-intercept? 0. Okay, so right here, we have negative 4 over 4 plus or minus 2 root 10 over 4, right? So 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into negative 4, negative 1. 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. So it's negative 1 and then plus or minus the square root of 10 over 2. What should you always try to do first before you go to the quadratic formula? Always try and factor. Don't just jump to the quadratic formula. Yes, the quadratic formula will work every time, but it's very time consuming, so don't do that. All right, let's scoot on over to number 2. Same thing. Talk to me about this parabola. It's downwards. It's a negative parabola, so that tells me some stuff. Do I have a maximum or a minimum value? Maximum. I have a maximum, and it's going to be at y equals whatever part of the y part of the vertex. Do I know my x-intercept just by looking? No. Do I know my y-intercept just by looking? Yes. What is it? 0, negative 3. Great. Do I know my axis of symmetry? But I do know it's at x equals whatever part of the x part of the vertex, sorry. What's my domain? Perfect. Negative infinity to positive infinity. And then think about your range. Is it negative infinity to the y part of the vertex? Or is it the y part of the vertex to positive infinity? Good. Negative infinity to whatever the y is of your vertex. And we'll figure that out in a second.
Wait, why is it...
All right, so let's find the vertex. Kiara, question. Yeah. Let's find the vertex. How do you find it? Negative b, x equals negative b over 2a. That's going to tell me the x part. Then I'm going to find the y part. So negative b, I have negative 8 divided by 2 times negative 4. What's negative 8 divided by negative 8? Positive 1. So my vertex is at 1 comma something. My axis of symmetry is that x equals 1. How do we find the y part? Plug it in. So I'm going to say negative 4 times 1 squared plus 8 times 1 minus 3. What's 1 squared? So negative 4 plus 8 minus 3. You work left to right. What's negative 4 plus 8? 4, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So your vertex is at 1 comma 1. That means my maximum value is at y equals 1. That means my range is from negative infinity to 1. Look at, we can answer all of those questions. Everything's answered. Except for my x-intercepts. So how do we find the x-intercepts again? We're going to factor negative 4x squared plus 8x minus 3 equals 0. First thing I look for is a GCF. We don't have one, but I lead with a negative. Do we leave that negative hanging out there out in front? No. We're going to factor out that negative, and everything, the signs change. So I have 4x squared minus 8x plus 3 equals 0. Yes, sir.
Why not?
All right, so now what do I do, guys? A times C. 4 times 3 is 12. What are the factors of positive 12 that multiply to give me positive 12, but add to give me a negative 8? X minus 6, x minus 2. Yeah? Okay. So, now what do I do? Why do I divide everything by 4? Good. Because your A term is not 1. Perfect. Does 4 go into 6 or 2 evenly? No, but can I simplify a little bit? Yes. This becomes x minus 3 over 2. And this becomes x minus 1/2, yeah? So when I rewrite my parentheses, I have negative 1. This becomes 2x minus 3. And this becomes 2x minus 1. You guys agree? Yes. And now we set each little piece equal to. So negative 1 equals 0. Is that ever true? No. So you can cross it off. 2x minus 3 equals 0. And 2x minus 1 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides. So 2x equals 3. And x equals 3 over 2. Add 1 to both sides, you get 2x equals 1, so x equals 1/2. Now, guys, we found here intercepts, correct? Yes. So do I leave it as just x equals? No. What are the intercepts here? 3/2, comma, 0, and 1/2, comma, 0. When you write your x and y intercepts, you absolutely have to write them as ordered pairs. Make sure you guys do that. I put a bonus question. It's a bonus content. You might see this, so that's why I put it on there. If you find a vertex and it has a fraction, that is okay. So I wanted to practice this a little bit. If I was going to find the vertex here, right, you guys can find the max, the min, and all that based upon the vertex. I'm not going to go through that again. But if I'm going to find my vertex, x equals negative b over 2a, right? Negative b, so I have negative 1 over 2 times 2, correct? So this happens to be at 1/4. All right? So my vertex for this parabola that I just gave you is at 1/4, comma, something. Now we have to plug 1/4 into the equation. You guys can handle this. I want to show you how to do this. I have 2 times 1/4 squared minus 1/4 plus 4. Here's the hardest part. You just have to remember, when I am squaring a fraction, guys, that 2 goes to where? The numerator and the denominator. So this becomes 2 times 1 squared is 1, 4 squared is 16, minus 1/4 plus 4. Now, how you simplify from here is totally up to you. If you want to make that first fraction 2/16 and then change everything to 16ths, that's fine. I personally like to make my numbers smaller. So this is 2/1. I'm going to say 2 goes into 2 once and 2 goes into 16 8 times, right? So you have 1/8 minus 1/4 plus 4 what? 1. So guys, what's going to be a common denominator between 8, 4, and 1? 8. I'm going to change everything to 8. Just put it over one fraction bar. Do I have to multiply? What do I multiply 8 by to make it 8? Well, 1. Multiply the bottom by 1 the top, so I left with just 1, correct? How do I make 4 become an 8? 2. If I multiply the bottom by 2, then we multiply the top by 2, so 1 times 2 is 2. And then the last fraction, to make it 8, I have to multiply by 8. So if I multiply the bottom by 8, then I multiply the top by 8, and I get plus 32. And now we simplify. What is 1 minus 2 plus 32? So positive 31/8. Am I asking you where that is on a graph? Nope. What did we get? 31/8. So 31/8. Now you guys can tell me everything I need to know about this parabola by finding that vertex. Is it positive or negative? Positive. It's positive. So tell me, where is there a maximum or a minimum? A minimum where? At y equals 31/8. What is the axis of symmetry? X equals 1/4. What is the domain? Good. What is the range? 31/8 to positive infinity. Good. So just because you have to do a little extra, or you got to think just a little bit with your Vertex by plugging stuff back in, you guys are going to be okay. All right? Okay, let's move on to the next part. We're going to talk about multiplicity, zeros, and end behavior. All right, when we're talking about end behaviors, it's important that your polynomial is first in what kind of form? Standard. This is in standard form, so we're good. I identify the highest exponent, which is a 3. What kind of a number is 3? It's odd. So when I think of odd, I think of opposite. And is it positive x cubed or negative? Positive. So my arrows are going to go in opposite directions positively, like a line, a positive line would. So now for end behaviors, I talk about what's going on the left-hand side of the graph and what's going on the right-hand side. What's going on the left? So you would tell me it's falling left and what? Rising right. You need to use the terms falling and rising. You need to read from left to right. If you confuse them, if you switch them, I'm going to mark it wrong. So make sure you guys are paying attention to that. All right, now if we're asked to find the zeros, what does zeros mean? The x what? X-intercepts, the roots, the solutions, where the graph crosses the x-axis. We are going to factor. So we have x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x equals 0. First thing we look for when we're factoring is a GCF. Do you have something in common? Yep. Let's take out an x. So I'm left with x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Can I factor this anymore? Are there factors of positive 2 that multiply to give me a positive 2 but add to give me a negative 3? X minus 2, x minus 1. Perfect. Now what do I do to each piece? Set it equal to 0. How many answers do I have here? How many zeros? 3. X equals 0, x equals 2, x equals 1. If there is a line that you're supposed to write your zeros, you can write x equals 0, 1, 2. You could leave it right here on your paper and just box it so I see it. The last question for this particular area is going to say state the multiplicity. Do you see any x values listed multiple times? Do you have the same answer more than once? No. So your multiplicity would be none. Okay, like I said, any factoring that we've done is fair game. So let's pay attention here. Guys, for a question like this, don't make a silly mistake at the beginning. Yes, this is an even function, whether you put it in standard form or not. But what happens if it's not in standard form? It's negative. When you put it in standard form, it's actually what? Positive. So rewrite x squared, just kidding, x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 4x squared. Now I'm already going to set equal to 0 because I know I'm going to factor. So 4 is my highest exponent. It's even, and I think same. So for my end behaviors, it's a parabola-ish shape. I just know that it resembles a parabola at the ends. So we're going to say, all right, what is the end behavior on the left-hand side versus the right-hand side? Okay, I don't want you to say both rising. Say it to me. Something left, something right. Rising left and rising right. Good. You have to tell me what's, I spelled it right. You don't just put up, right? You have to say it correctly. Now, when we go to factor this, guys, x to the 4th plus 3x squared cubed, I have a tough time rewriting this, minus 4x squared equals 0. What can I take out of all three of these? An x squared. All right. So I'm left with x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. So I have x squared times, are there factors of negative 4 that'll multiply to give me negative 4 and add to give me 3? X plus 4, x minus 1. Good. Now what do I do with each piece? Set it equal to 0. X squared equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. And x minus 1 equals 0. Now, be careful with this one. I told you guys months ago, at the beginning of a problem, when you have something like this, the highest exponent tells you how many answers you have, yes? Okay. So how many should I have? 4. How do I solve x squared equals 0? Take the square root. Now, guys, in any case, when you take the square root, what goes in front of your answer? Plus or minus. I'm going to write the plus or minus here. Is there such thing as plus or minus 0? But what is that telling me that I have plus and minus 0? There's 2 zeros. If you had any other number, if you had x squared equals 4, you would tell me the answer is positive 2, negative 2. If it was x squared equals 1, you would tell me there's a 0 at negative 1, positive 1. So in this case, this is one of those special cases. Don't get yourselves confused. There are 2 zeros. You have x equals 0 2 times. Over here, you have x equals negative 4. And over here, you have x equals 1. So here are your zeros. You want to box them, put them just like this. That's fine. You don't have to go put them on the line. The next line is going to say state the multiplicity. Do you guys have multiplicity? Yes, we do. The way that you can tell me this, you can either write it on the line or you can show me. Where is their multiplicity? Right here. You could go like this and say 2 times. If you wrote it on the line, you would have to say multiplicity 2 times, and you got to tell me where. So at x equals 0. You can't just say 2 times. Because I need to know if you understand it. Is it at negative 4? Is it at 1? Is it at 0? No, you can write x equals 0. That's fine. Because it's just a repeated 0. But it's important that you guys see that. Everybody okay? All right, let's look at the last one. Standard form? Yep. Highest exponent is 4. This is an even, so I think even and same, right? So it resembles at the end a parabola. So tell me my end behaviors. Rising left. Good job. And rising right. Good job, guys. You're using the leading coefficient test to tell me that. Okay, so now we're going to find our zeros, which is just another lovely terminology for factor. Somebody told me last period, oh, you can't factor this one because it doesn't have an x cubed. Yes, you can. Follow the rules. What is the first thing we look for when we're factoring? Greatest common factor. What do you think it is? 9. Okay, I could take a 9 out of all of these. I'm left with x to the 4th minus 6x squared plus 9 equals 0. Agreed? Okay, this is just a trinomial, you guys. This is just a trinomial that you know how to factor. What times what? Instead of giving me x squared, what times what is going to give me x to the 4th? Right? Instead of x squared, and we say x times x, what's going to give me x to the 4th? X squared and perfect. That's it. Now think about the factors of 9. That'll multiply to give me 9, but add to give me 6, negative 6. A negative 3 and negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. So now what do I do with each parenthesis? I set everything equal to 0. What do you guys notice?
9 does not equal 0.
Okay, 9 doesn't equal 0. I agree. I can cross that out. Olivia, what do you notice?
Plus or minus if you have to do square root.
Yep, I have plus or minus, have to do square root. What else do you notice?
There's the repeating.
There's definitely multiplicity. How do I already see that? Those two are exactly the same. So when I go to solve this, I move 3 over. I have x squared equals 3. And over here, I have x squared equals 3. How do you find x? You take the square root. When you take the square root, what goes in front of your answer? Plus or minus. Now, this might be helpful for some of you, so I'm going to show you this. In a case like this, I look at the beginning and I say, okay, I'm supposed to have 4 answers. I'm going to write out all 4 answers. I'm going to say I have x equals the square root of 3 here, and I have x equals the negative square root of 3, right? And then over here, I'm going to say x equals the square root of 3, and I have x equals the negative square root of 3. So visually, do you see all 4 of your answers? Okay, that's fine. Now, visually, do you see that you have multiplicity? Yes. So the way that you would tell me that, you can either go like this, 2 times, right? And I have this one 2 times. If you don't want to do that, you would have to say that I have multiplicity. No, 2 times at x equals root 3. And I have 2 times, where? At x equals negative root 3. I'm glad you said that, Hannah. It does appear, guys, and I understand why you would tell me that there's multiplicity 4 times. But it's not the same answer 4 times. It's 2 of one and 2 of another. Does that make sense? Okay, so make sure you guys differentiate. That's important. I think sometimes when you have plus or minus answers, when you have to state multiplicity and stuff, it does help to write them all out so you can see it. All right, moving along. If you started this earlier this morning, I changed these 2. Or there was only 1 actually, but. So let's work these 2 out. How do I write this? What goes where? 2x plus 1 is on the outside, and inside underneath, I'm going to write my whole polynomial, and I make sure it's in standard form. We make sure there's no gaps. If you started the one from this morning, there was a gap, and it was a really long problem. So now, guys, long division like we did back when we were in 3rd grade. You guys can do this. First term into first term. 2x times what gives me 2x cubed? X squared. I'm going to put my x squared up here above my negative 11x squared. And I'm going to get my subtraction ready before I multiply. Why should I do that? So you don't get confused. You don't forget to distribute that negative sign. So now, yes, ma'am. Okay, so now let's multiply. What is x squared times 2x? 2x cubed, okay. And then what is x squared times 1? Plus x squared. Now, right now, before you subtract, what do I have to do with that negative sign? I have to distribute, so I'm going to change. So negative 11x squared minus 1x squared gives me negative 12x squared. And what happens with my x cubes? They cancel out. Now I bring down my negative 2x, right? And we do the whole thing all over again. First term into first term. So 2x times what gives me negative 12x squared? Negative 6x. Good. So get your subtraction ready before we do anything. So multiply negative 6x times 2x is negative 12x squared. Negative 6x times 1 is minus 6x, right? Now, before I subtract, what do? I'm going to change. So negative 2 plus 6 is 4x. What happens to my 12x squareds? They cancel. And then what do? Bring down the 2. And we do it what? Again, first term into first term. 2x times what gives me 4x? So plus 2. Get your subtraction ready. Now when we multiply, 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 1 is 2. Before I subtract, what happens? Change. Well, this one's nice and pretty. What happens with positive 2 and negative 2? It cancels. What happens with 4 and negative 4? It cancels. Do I have a remainder? No. If I did, what would I do with it? I'd put it over 2x plus 1. Whether if it's a positive, it'd be plus. If it's a minus, it'd be negative. So your answer is x squared minus 6x plus 2. Reese, that little drawing was for you, honey. Reese always draws stuff on her quiz. All right, let's look at the next one. How do I write this out? 3x plus 5. And then on the inside, 15x cubed plus 37x squared plus 53x plus 55. Don't get freaked out by the size of the numbers. Everything's written in standard form, so we're good. We're going to say first term into first term. So 3x times what gives you 15x cubed? 5x squared. So get your subtraction ready. 5x squared times 3x is 15x cubed. And then 5 times 5 is Okay, so I have plus 25x squared. So see, if we don't distribute here, we're going to add 37 and 25. We can't do that. We are subtracting that polynomial. So when we subtract, we're distributing that negative sign. So I'm going to change this one, and I'm going to change this one. So 37 minus 25 is how much? 12. So I have 12x squared, and then my 15x cubes cancel out. And what do I do with 53? I bring it down. And then we start our process all over again. First term, which is 3x, into 12x squared. So 3x times what gives me 12x squared? 4x. So plus 4x. Good. Get your subtraction ready. Let's multiply. 4 times 3 is going to give me 12x squared. 4 times 5 is going to give me plus 20x, correct? Yeah, we're good? Okay, so before we subtract, we've got to distribute that negative. So it's going to change. What's 53 minus 20? 33x. What happens with my 12x squareds? They cancel. And what do I do with 55?
Bring it down.
So plus 55. Do I stop?
No.
Almost. First term into first term.
11.
11. Good. I didn't even have to write it. 3x times what gives me 33x? All right, so plus 11. So get your subtraction ready before you go. Before you multiply, 11 times 3 is going to give me 33x. And 5 times 11 is going to give me 55. And then when I distribute, everything does what? Cancels out. So I don't have a remainder again. You guys will probably have a remainder on yours. I'm just saying. So understand, girls, understand when you have your remainder what you need to do with it, okay? Like say it was a negative 2. You would write 5x squared plus 4x plus 11 minus 2 over 3x plus 5. All right, last two. When we talk about the remainder theorem, guys, what's the only thing that I care about? The remainder. There's a special way to write your answer, so let's make sure we do that. But they're already telling me what to use for my synthetic division. What number do they want me to evaluate with first? Negative 2. So everybody pay attention. I'm going to write out the coefficients of everything in my polynomial. So my coefficient of x to the 4th is 4. What's the coefficient of x cubed? Negative 16. Good. What's the coefficient of x squared? God bless you. 5. What's the coefficient of x? 0. Do I have to have that 0? Yes. Super important. You guys have to have that placeholder. And then what's left over? 9. You guys are good. We're almost done. Yes. Yes, hurry up. Bring down the 4. To synthetically divide, multiply to the corner and add down. So 4 times negative 2 is negative 16, and negative 8 gives me negative 24. Good. Negative 24 times negative 2. 48. Positive 48. Very good. And then 5 and 48 is 53. Okay. 53 times negative 2. Negative 106. Then I combine 0 and negative 106, and I get negative 106. Good. One more time. Negative 106 times negative 2 is positive 212. And then I add 9 and 212, and I get 220. Whoops. All right, like that. 221. How do I write my answer? Good. F of negative 2 equals 221. We're using our remainder theorem. Very good, guys. All right, look at the next one. I'm now going to synthetically divide using what number? 5. Okay. Guys, don't be alarmed if numbers are large or something like that. Just make sure you take your time. Take your time. Use your brains. You guys can do this. Write out your coefficients. It's 4. What? Negative 16. 5. 0. And 9. If I forget that placeholder, is it really that big of a deal?
Yes.
Yeah, super big. Super huge. Bring down your first term, multiply to the corner. What is 4 times 5? 20. Negative 16 plus 20 is 4. Good. Multiply to the corner again, guys. 4 times 5 is 20. Add down. 5 and 20 is? Good. Multiply to the corner. 25 times 5, God bless you. 125. Add down. 0 and 125 is? 125. All right, we got a big one. $1.25 5 times. $6.25. Good. Think about, when you guys have 25, think about money. It's easier for you guys to visualize. And then what's 625 plus 9? How much? Okay, 634. So that's all right. How would I write my answer? F of 5 equals 634. Very good. Guys, I cannot stress enough how important it is for your X and Y intercepts. You write your answer how? No, X and Y intercepts, what we're talking about at the beginning. Parentheses, as an ordered pair. 0, comma, a number, or a number, comma, 0. If I ask you for the range, does it include the number or not include the number? It does. If I ask you for the axis of symmetry, what letter should be in front of the number that you write down? X equals. If you're asked for the maximum or minimum value, what letter should be in front of your answer? Max and min. If I say, what's the minimum value, and tell me 3, I'm marking it wrong.
Negative infinity or infinity.
No, max and min.
Y equals.
Y equals. You have to remember those little details. You guys are going to get mad at me, but I'm going to take points off for all that stuff. You have to be careful with all of that stuff. Everybody good?